Welcome, David, to Wealth Matters podcast. How are you today?
I'm very good, Alpesh. Thank you.
Where are you right now? In Panama?
I'm in Panama City, Panama. That's where I live. I've been in Central America for many, many years, about 23 years. I currently live in Panama.
Oh wow! But you are an U.S. citizen, right? So you were based out of U.S. and moved to Central America or South America?
That's correct. Yes, yes. Well, I've lived overseas for many years, and I worked for Panasonic company worldwide. Then, some years ago, I decided that I wanted to do something different while I was still young enough.
Right.
So I came to Central America and, eventually got involved in residential real estate and development, which later on led to, my interest, not only as a work, but I also invested in agriculture. And
Oh,
so,
you did. Oh,
yes,
that's nice
that's
to hear.
that's really what brought me around because I really like the whole business model. I like the idea of food and water, good investments. So that's how it all started.
So, what do you do currently?
Well, currently I represent a German company, a privately owned company in Paraguay. The head office is in Munich, Germany. And I was introduced to Mr. Karsten Fowl, the owner of the company, a couple of years ago through a mutual German friend that we have that lives in Panama. And so I've known this gentleman for some time, and he mentioned to me that he's invested. He was one of the very first investors with Karsten in Paraguay, and he said, I think you might be interested in meeting Karsten and having a look at what he's doing in Paraguay. And I said, okay, that sounds great. And so a few months later, I met with Karsten here in Panama, and he invited me to Paraguay. And I went down and looked at the entire project, and I did my due diligence.
Due diligence, yeah.
I took a look at the financials. I took a look at the titles and things like that, and I was very pleased to see that it's a debt-free company. And Karsten has his own personal equity involved in this, so there's no banks whatsoever. And then Karsten and I made an agreement that I would create a marketing company, which I have, by the name of Paraguay Invest, to market his project in North America. And that's essentially what I do. Karsten's clients are all Europeans up to this point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the majority of them are Germans, Swiss, Austrian, and various other European countries, but the majority are basically German-speaking people naturally. So, and he never had been involved in the North American market whatsoever, and so since I've been in this business a number of years in real estate and things, of course I have a lot of contacts. I have a lot of clients that I've done business with over the last 20 years. And so that's what I do. I do the marketing and we attend different events and so forth. And it's been quite successful. We've done very well. We've been involved now for about a year and a half with the real estate guys, and we've done well with that. And we're looking forward to doing a lot of business in the future. So that's what we do.
Got it. And yes, you mentioned about the events. I met you at your booth in last year's New Orleans investment conference.
Yes.
So,
yes.
And then that's when I was like, okay, this makes sense, as I was already investing in coffee farm in Panama, and I'm always looking into agriculture because we need food to eat, right?
That's
So
correct.
that is
Yes.
It's a better way to hedge the economy, as well as I can also reduce some dollar risk by investing out of country.
Yes, yes. Well, uh, many investors are looking for different types of offshore investments.
Right.
And, Central and South America has a lot of potential for agriculture. If you look at oranges, for example, the largest orange growing country in the world is Brazil,
Yep.
by far.
Which is true.
Okay,
Yeah.
as by far. And so that's why it's very interesting for investors because of the different labor laws and the ability to do business in ways it's much more simplified than the United States.
Right.
And because of the low labor costs and things like that and lower land cost, there's a lot more profit to be had. Okay, so you get a better return ultimately on that. Of course, you always have to look at the risk, like every kind of investment. You have to look at the country, and we discussed at some point about Paraguay. And a lot of people have heard of Paraguay, but they don't really know much about
And
it.
I was going to ask you about that. I'm glad that you brought it up. So I have personally heard of course, Panama, Brazil, Uruguay, Colombia, Belize for agriculture, but I have never heard of Paraguay. So why is that so, and how Paraguay is better than some of these neighboring countries? Can you shed some light?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I mean, I also had the same sort of opinion. Like, really, Paraguay?
Yeah.
What's it all about? I mean, I'm aware of the country, and I'm aware of some of the culture and so forth and so on, and the history. However, uh, I did know that Paraguay is one of the largest exporters of beef in the world,
Oh, wow.
and has been for many, many years. What I didn't know was that it's also one of the largest exporters of soybeans.
Hmm.
And it's a big exporter of wheat, corn, chia. So Paraguay is a very quiet agricultural powerhouse. It's basically, when I went down there to take a look at the country and visit Karsten, he took me around and we saw quite a bit of the country. And what I realized, during my trip was really Paraguay is simply two things. It's a massive cattle ranch, and it's a big farm. It's just
Oh,
a huge farm. However, the farming produce is basically all row crops.
I
you know,
see.
soybean, corn, wheat, different things like that. These are fast turnover row crops. Okay, so at the end of the day, I discovered that yes, it is a very, very powerful agricultural country. I also realized that financially, very conservative. An example of that would be that the debt to the GDP right now is about 15%. So that in itself is pretty amazing. When you consider the United States is well over 100%. So they're very conservative financially, politically as well, very conservative. It's primarily a Catholic country, which is again, quite conservative. So it's a very stable country over the last 30 years. The dictator resigned back in the 80s, and they've just had democratic elections ever since. And it's also very investment friendly from foreigners. They promote it. They also have one of the lowest tax rates in South America at 10%. So there's a lot of reasons why Paraguay, compared to some of the other countries, is it's probably more attractive to invest in because they don't have this economic turmoil that you hear about in Brazil just
Right.
recently, and also Colombia and some of these other countries where they're having huge financial problems, the currency's devalued. All this is sort of happening around Paraguay, but doesn't really affect them. So it's really quite stable, and everyone who's been there has been pleasantly surprised about it's a relatively safe country. It's clean, and they always tend to enjoy themselves. One noticeable difference in Paraguay and perhaps the surrounding countries is that it has no beach, sort of like Bolivia, if you will, and therefore there's very little tourism. It's really, I mean, there's just not much tourism at all,
which is good and bad.
which is good and bad, but
Right.
they really they do farming, and they grow beef. I mean, they grow cattle, and
Right.
that's what they do, and they're very hardworking people. I found them to be very conscientious, very professional in what they do. So I think that Paraguay is it's a little bit of a hidden gem, if you will.
Interesting. So I'm gonna change the topic from Paraguay to, as you mentioned about, as Paraguay is a big exporter of chia seeds, soybeans, but then you guys are focused on orange trees and citrus trees. Why orange and citrus?
Well, Karsten has been doing cattle investments for about 18 years in Paraguay,
Oh,
quite successfully. And he's done other things as well. He's done, some country club investment developments, golf courses and
wow.
homes and things like that. He's built a few commercial buildings and things, but he's always looking for other opportunities. And the focus primarily is always on Paraguay and not necessarily exports and things like that. So after a rather extensive market study, he realized that 85% of all of the citrus produce and products that are consumed in Paraguay are imported. And that
Oh,
includes,
wow.
yes, that includes not only citrus, but vegetables as well in many cases. So what he decided was, how feasible, how viable is this? And he realized that, because of the land costs and the labor costs, transportation and things like that, he could compete quite well against the imports if he can grow it in Paraguay,
Right.
sell it in Paraguay, and have very quick delivery to the supermarket chains and so forth. It's a very viable business.
Right. Yeah. If everything is in-house, right? If you're
Yeah,
not relying
everything's
in on others.
exactly, and Carson also has a controlling interest in one of the food distribution companies within Paraguay. So this gives him a great
Yeah.
infrastructure to the market. They can respond quickly. And so initially, he put up again his own money for the land. He started planting trees. And then he realized that he really wanted to make this a viable business, for decades. He needed to expand as fast as possible. And that means acquiring land and getting as many trees in the ground as quickly as possible. And so initially, what he did is he offered this type of business model, private placement, to some of his German cattle investors. And that's how it all began. And then they started marketing it in Germany and things like that. And so he started drawing in investors to become a farming partner with him. And at this point, in the first plantation, he's got a little over 95,000 orange trees in the ground.
Wow.
Okay. And so that's the real focus, is to address the local market, which provides more than enough business, to do. And because number one, the population is always growing all the time. And you know, there's a lot of demand for that, and he can compete price wise, which is the most important thing, price and also faster delivery, rather than going through, you know, the customs and ordering it from Argentina or ordering
Right.
it from Brazil. It's almost an immediate delivery. So that's the real foundation behind the decision to create these orange and citrus plantations. Now, oranges are actually the core business.
Okay.
The citrus offerings they're limited, and what I mean by that is he has commitments from distributors and supermarkets inside Paraguay that want to buy these products, like, you know, lemons and limes and things like
Yeah, I
that.
was going to ask, when you say citrus, what kind of trees? That would be lemon and lime?
Yeah, lemons and limes. We may have in the near future some tangerines,
Okay.
possibly, but it's very low numbers. I mean, in the scheme of things. For
Right.
example, in the second plantation, the newest plantation, which is about halfway between the first plantation and Asuncion, that is where all the citrus will be located. So you're only talking about 40 hectares of lemons, 40 hectares of lime, maybe 40 hectares of tangerine, where in that same plantation, you're going to have over 300 hectares of oranges.
Oh, wow. That's a
Yeah, and
huge difference.
it's a huge difference because it's a limited, it's sort of a niche market.
Right.
And once they are sold, there probably won't be any more offered in the future.
Okay.
And
Hey,
by the way, they're almost sold out
oh,
right now.
wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
they're about 80% sold out right now. So
So we are chatting with David, and we'll take a quick break. Thank you. Welcome back. We are chatting with David of Paraguay AG Invest. Hey, David, we spoke about orange trees, citrus. So, what kind of ROI someone should expect, right? As an investor, that's what I look for, right?
mhm. Well, the ROIs, or the IRR, which you could say
Yeah, rate
the
of
term
return. Yep.
over the term of the contract, if you will. In oranges, it's about 16% IRR.
Okay.
Okay, that's for the
And the
general
IRR is over how many years?
25 years on
25 years. Okay.
yeah,
So
25
we
years on
so
oranges.
as an investor, I sign a contract for 25 years.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. Yes, you do. Now the ROIs, of course, you know, they build up starting in year 3 or 4 as the tree matures and the amount of produce harvested increases. Okay. So, for example, if you look at the largest lot of oranges, which is 1.24 acres, the first ROI is about 12.5%.
Okay.
But that very quickly goes up when you get around year 8. You're looking at about 30%.
Oh, wow.
You see, so then you have a curve on this, because, you know, citrus trees, they have a peak of production, and then
Right.
it starts diminishing as you
Pretty
go
much
forward.
every tree. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much every tree. So this is, you know, then you start going up around 30, it peaks at around 32%, and then it falls off from there. And then ultimately you go back down to year 24, you're about 18% again.
Okay.
And then at that time, what you do is you basically uh, cut down the trees, sell them for firewood, which is quite lucrative in Paraguay,
Oh,
and,
wow.
and then you replant.
Okay.
Okay. Now it sounds rather abrupt, but actually there's a system behind this. And what happens is, when the saplings are imported from Brazil, this is where we get all of the saplings.
Okay.
They're imported. They're quarantined before they leave Brazil. Then they're brought into Paraguay and they're quarantined again, about 6 weeks each time. And each tree is given a serial number.
Okay.
That serial number remains with the tree throughout the life of the tree.
Oh, I
And
see.
the reason for that is that allows us to monitor each individual tree by number and control the production.
Yeah, exactly. And you can track the production, right? ROI, even
We
by
can
trees,
by
right?
trees and by lot.
Yep.
So
Yep.
what happens is in around year 23, year 24, they'll start looking for any drastic changes in the amount of production. And then they'll start taking some of the trees out a bit early. Okay. They'll start replacing them because it's much better to replace it early because it will start producing earlier. Okay.
Yes.
So you could see as much as, for example, on an orange lot, there's 320 trees on an orange lot. Probably in year 23, they may take out about 20. Year 24, maybe another 20 or 30. And so by that time, they'll replace them all in year 25. And so you'll have some of the trees that were planted a couple years early, providing some income as you go forward.
Yeah, which makes sense, right? Because you've staggered the income as well.
That's
And
correct.
for like, let's say year 26, otherwise you won't have any income.
Yeah, you won't have any income for 3 years. Yeah,
So, what happens if I have signed a 25 years contract with you? Do I have to sign another contract when year 25 is up? And do I need to, put some more funding, or once I have, funded this investment, I'm done?
well, you'll have to fund the replanting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you'll have to fund the replanting,
I
and
see.
that's not so much money at the end of the
Right.
day. Although it's hard to predict what saplings will cost in 25
Right.
years.
Right. Yeah, we
But,
don't
but
know.
yeah, but at the end of the day, one has to consider this. Um, if you buy a lot in a plantation of 1,000 hectares of oranges, uh, you have two options. You can either replant or you can sell this to another investor
Right. Yep.
if you so desire. One thing that you cannot do is build a home there.
I wish.
And it just wouldn't work, you see.
Yeah,
So I mean that you have to keep the integrity, and the reason for that is you have to maintain the environmental integrity of the
which
plantation.
makes sense. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
so that's just what you have to
And
look
then
at.
you are dividing a lot by half acre or an acre. I can't just go in and build a house right in the middle of all these other orange farms or citrus farms. Right.
Yeah, I don't think your wife would care for that too much.
Right.
So that's the way that works. So yes, what you end up doing is you replant, and now one thing I can say is that it's you never know what might be in more demand 25 years from now.
Right.
You might end up planting something totally different.
Hmm.
That depends on the company and the market and things like that. And at that time, of course, there'd have to be a presentation done by the company to all the investors and say, look, this is the reason why we want to do this. These are what the returns are, and so forth and so on. So, that's the good thing about farming is that, you do have some measure of flexibility in the long term.
And even after this IRR you mentioned, after 25 years, I still own the land, right? And of
Oh yeah.
course, over 25 years, if nothing else, I'm assuming the land has appreciated too.
Absolutely. You own the land and you also own the irrigation system that's installed on your land.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, everything that's on that land physically belongs to you.
So, and I'm pretty sure now you're working with a lot of North American investors. So do they face any kind of legal issues transferring the deed to their names, etc., or taxes in Paraguay? Can you explain that?
Well, as far as purchasing land in Paraguay, any foreigner can purchase land in Paraguay, fee simple title, in your name or any legal entity that you desire.
I see.
So that's the same as it is here in Panama. It's just like buying land in the U.S. There's no issues in owning the land whatsoever. Okay. Regarding the contracts, it's rather interesting what's going on with Agriterra compared to some of the other agricultural projects that I'm familiar with. The business model is the same essentially. You know, one is a real estate transaction for the land in your name, and then the other one is the farming agreement, which is at the end of the day maybe the most important part of it, which that means that you have signed over the responsibility to the farming company to implement the land, take care of the crops, take care of the trees, and ultimately harvest and sell the produce for a profit. Okay. Now, this is very common, but what's not very common is the fact that the contracts are written and subject to German law.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So this gives you an extra layer of protection that you don't normally have, you know, anywhere else that I've seen it where you sign a contract, right?
And why is that so? How would that work? Or how would it give me extra layer of protection?
Well, because I think that most people would be much more comfortable if they have a legal issue going to court in Germany rather than Paraguay.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. Now, there's also another part of this, which is really, really good. You see, because Germany has these very strict laws for private placements for small investors, that's why it's under German law, you see. But it also means that the seller must provide insurance on the investment.
Oh, okay.
Which you don't have on any other agricultural investment that I'm aware of. Okay. So this insurance covers not only natural disasters, flooding, disease, fire, what have you, it also covers financial embezzlement.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. So this really it puts us in a different category, if you will, when it comes to security for the investor.
Okay, now it makes sense.
Yeah, it's very, very good. And this was one of the things that attracted me so much when I decided to represent Agriterra in the North American market, because I realized very quickly that no one else has this. Not one other company that I know of. And so this is really I think it's a good sense of security. Because the German laws for this kind of investment are very strict. They're very, very, very strict. So there's no legal issues, that are not common to any other kind of investment. But there is extra security without a doubt.
Got it. And one more question I have about the investment. Is this truly turnkey and passive?
It is, yes.
So once, let's say I invest, I don't need to do anything.
No,
And
not.
how long does it take right now to transfer or deed on in an investor's name, especially North American investor's name?
Approximately 12 months.
Oh, okay. So it
About 12
does
months.
take, yeah. Because
Yeah,
Panama, same thing. Panama is taking like 1.5 years to 2 years almost.
Yeah, Panama's a bit different. It's a little different bureaucracy. I also might add that another part of the German process that also I've never seen in any other agricultural project is once the contracts have been signed, the investment has been funded, the German office will send the contracts to Paraguay, and then in Paraguay, they take your contract to the public notary and get it notarized.
Hmm.
And then that copy will be sent to you, and that really it's sort of your temporary legal title to the land until you get the final title in 12 months.
Oh, okay, that's good. That's
Yeah, it's
definitely
very
good to have.
yeah, it's very good because what that actually does is that it it's a public notary saying we confirm that Agriterra is transferring this land over to Alpesh Pamar. So there's a
Yeah.
legal record. There's a legal record of him transferring it over to you, although it's in the process. But at the end of
Right.
the with that notarized contract, you can actually go to Paraguay and legally the land is yours, even without the title. It's yours.
That's great.
Yeah, yeah. It's so there's a lot of security in the investment. It's I think the fact that you have all these different layers of security is really good for peace of mind because for a lot of people investing in Latin America or Asia, or wherever you may be, it's a long way from home.
Yeah, it's scary and overwhelming for a lot of
Absolutely. I mean, it's
people.
totally understandable, and I think that when you can provide this level of protection that's based upon German law, well, that then people kind of go, okay, I can deal with that because I can go to Germany and basically speak English to people. They all
Yeah.
speak English, where that may not be the case in Paraguay, if you will. So yeah, I think it's a very, very big advantage for our investors, and people quite like it. They're quite surprised by it. When you explain to them, they go, wow, okay. And I also have a lot of investors that have invested in other agricultural projects in Latin America. And so they always say to me, wow, this is very different from one of the other projects I'm
Right.
involved in. I go, yeah, it's a good deal.
So
And it's
no,
no
this
extra cost.
was
It's no extra cost for the insurance either. This is included in the investment.
perfect. No, this
Yeah.
was great. So how can my listeners reach out to you, David?
Well, they can always contact me on ParaguayAgInvest.com.
And I will
Okay.
put that URL in the show notes as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's we have also Messenger on the website. If they go on the website and want to click on Messenger and have a quick chat, we do that as well. And if you go to the website, you'll find some good videos. We have some testimonials as well. We always update the website with pictures of the plantation. And so we try to provide our investors, our current investors, and people that are considering investing with us as much information as we possibly can. If someone makes an inquiry and we send them brochures and things like that, we will also send them copies of the contract that they can take a look at the contract ahead of time. And
Yeah.
if they have any questions about that, we can resolve that before they ever actually participate. And we try to provide as much transparency as possible.
No, that is great. So thank you, David, for taking time out of your busy schedule today. And listeners, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or visit ParaguayAgInvest.com.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity, Alpesh, to speak with you and hopefully provide some information to your followers and listeners that they'll find interesting and intriguing. And I look forward to any inquiry.
Have a nice weekend, David.
Same to you.